Welcome to my first time-lapse commentary. I've been meaning to do these types of things for a while and just never got around to it, so I figured let's do it. The subject for this is a piece that I had started years ago and that I put into Procreate, digitized, and started to work with. One of the other things I wanted to talk about in this video was the use of color. I have had great struggles when not using the digital medium or digital tools with integration of color. I am not a painter, and as such, I don't have that kind of ability or skill to blend color to create depth. You know what I mean? Since I have been using digital tools, I've really enjoyed adding color and playing with it. And initially, when I started to work with this piece in Procreate, I wanted to go with a very, natural, sort of organic or almost more realistic color palette. So as you see here, I'm kind of aiming towards that flesh tone thing. At first, I thought sickly was really my angle, and as I kind of went through this process, I just didn't like how it was turning out. And, like we can, I bumped over to the initial style that I had started, and you'll see it earlier, the video, this sort of really quick flash of blue. Specifically to this blue, I've been using this blue a lot since I have been doing more digital art, and I just really love it. So I thought, why not use that? And then I leaned heavily into, the typical, red demon. That said, I absolutely love red and have a great comfort in red, so I don't usually have a problem throwing it in there where I can. And in this case, I thought, why not just lean into it heavily? At this stage, it's just that, that subject, the demon or the darker figure behind and the digging into the face. And when I initially did this sketch, it was to practice self-portraiture and doing more complicated stuff and practicing hands. I think any artist who has spent any time developing their style has always struggled with hands. It's a big thing, and I like to practice them when I can. I also like to hide them a lot, so because I don't have any confidence in hands. That said, in this case, it was really just, okay, let's throw some color at this and let's start working on creating depth. As you saw earlier, there's, the initial sketch is kind of crosshatch and it creates that depth. But here it was using just color again, but instead of going with that realistic color, it was get it to have depth using those shocking colors. Once I got through it, and at this point in the process, I've realized I can't go anywhere with this piece other than down and out. So I needed to start to create character for the characters. So at that point, I started to work on building out their bodies and figuring out how this hand is there and why it's there. Please excuse this part of the video. I'm very sorry. The blackness is that when I don't use the background, it goes black. That's awesome. I'll remember that for futures. As you can see, I kind of went with the hug, and I think the hug was very appropriate. This image to me has always been about something lurking behind you, but still influencing you or being a part of you. That latching on, unwelcome, and almost violent hugging intimacy that is depicted here started to create a very visceral reaction for me while I was creating it. And at that point, I just committed heavily. Past that, it was balancing the features as well as making sure that neither of these characters overshadowed the other in detail. The last bit here is me, using the warp tool in Procreate to manipulate the faces and make them into a form that I really thought was more emotionally impactful for the piece. And it helped with the motion and the stretching and the new positioning of the piece itself with the two bodies in it, which weren't part of the original piece themselves. And then, of course, there's just a lot of me playing with imagery so that I have other images of this image that I can share. The last few images of this video will be the pieces that I created using Procreate for social media. Some of these are the heavily manipulated, and of course the original sketch is there as well, which is featured as I'm speaking. It's been a wonderful exercise in practice, and it certainly is something that I would highly recommend for most people. If you're struggling or if you're having those types of issues creatively, go back to your portfolio, pull something out, and just start working with it. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you have comments, I'd love to see them and read them. Please tell me if you yourself struggle with creative moments and if you have things that you do to move past those creative blocks. And if you yourself have done some of these things like taking old work and putting it into Procreate and playing with it, share, because I'd love to see it. Thanks so much. And remember, keep making art.